Hi everyone, this is Renee from Meadowlark Mystic, and I am finally doing a VR that I've been wanting to do for a while. There's a lot of VRs I've been meaning to do, but this is the one I got to today. And it is from Candy, and it is hashtag top 10 curiosity decks. I really enjoyed her video about this, so I thought I would just jump in. So the first deck that I wanted to showcase is for a curiosity deck is the Mystical Tarot. This is a low Scarabeo deck. I'll just share some of the more curious cards in this deck while I'm talking about it. So this deck, I think the Cups suit is very weird, very curious. It's got these, I don't know, like seahorse, sea creatures, sea monsters, and then it's got these like brainy tentacles, and those seahorses you see throughout the Cups suit, which is kind of weird and interesting. And then there's also kind of, well, there's salamanders or kind of salamander monsters in the wands, but there's this weird figure in the back of him. He doesn't have arms, and then it's almost like a dinosaur coming out of this volcano. So this deck it's very Rider Waite, but it has a lot of very bizarre, strange things going on in the cards. A lot of weird heads, very bizarre creatures, and a lot of action going on in the sky in the back. So planets and solar systems. And then again, so this is the Queen of Pentacles. There's this odd figure in the back who reminds me of a Slavic goddess, kind of a Slavic, I think it's Spring. Gosh, I can't remember the name. Anyway, and there's this bizarre goat head in this one, right here at the bottom. Some kind of goat. And this ship looks to be sinking. And then even though this is, I don't love hearts being, pierced for the Three of Swords, I really do like this depiction because for me it talks about the heart and the mind being kind of out of whack or being pierced by truth. And then there's the three kind of geese or doves. This Fool card, when you first see it, you're like, oh yeah, traditional Rider Waite. But if you look closer, the creepier and creepier it gets. So look at, there's all these bones at the bottom here, and birds of prey or carrion birds. And then the I'll take this pencil. Here you've got these really kind of sinister looking owls, and the dog, these look almost like fingers or legs or something coming off of the Fool. And then there's a banana peel. If I talk at this length at all the cards, it's going to be too much. It's interesting. Like this looks almost like an eye. There's an angel who's kind of blessing. This is a very curious deck, and it's one of my favorites. Two faces in the clouds. And there's a lot of elemental stuff too. Again, the kind of salamander dinosaur going on. I love this depiction of the Ten of Swords. There's no blood. It's in the kind of the green hills. There's this explosion almost, and then the new moon and the owl, and yeah, I just really like it. Yeah, so a lot of interesting, strange things going on in the skies in this deck. There's so much going on with this. The birds, the hat, the cloaks, the two faces, the giant eye. There's a woman or a female presenting person at the top here who doesn't have any clothes on for the King of Pentacles. So that's interesting. This is actually kind of what I would feel is a little more sinister of a Temperance card. it's just got some kind of dark energies going on, like something's going on back there. The ruffles, I don't know, they remind me of intestines. Their expression is kind of intense. Again, the kind of creepy sea creatures, and this Nine of Cups, you know, he doesn't look that stoked for the Wish card. So, again, double shooting stars, lots going on with the clouds and the figures. There's a random egg at the bottom there, which I think is cool. Very weird and creepy moon card, which I really like. This card looked really like not so normal, but then it looks like she picked a bunch of irises and she's just kind of throwing them behind her, which I think is interesting. Also, when I see those purple irises, I think of the Temperance card. The scales for this Knight of Swords is interesting. Again, creepy seahorses. This is a great Devil card. Lots to see. These almost look like demonic, demonic garden tools. There's the epitome of the monster seahorse. Again, I just love what's going on. I also love that there's a lion there, kind of like echoing the Strength card. A celestial salamander, and then the head of a lion. Yeah, a lot going on with that. So I have more, but I should probably move on because that took me a long time. Okay, so that's my first curiosity deck. I actually don't know how many I have, so we'll just go with it. This is a weird little deck. It's called the Sci Cards. I've featured this on my channel before, but it's, I think, several years ago now. Sci Cards, Set Your Psyche Free, a guide to Sci Card system, and then there's a website. I don't even know if that's active anymore. And then this is, so it's kind of like a majors only deck, but there are, I guess there's 40 cards, so not really majors only, but it's just it's an interesting, I guess, kind of archetypal deck. And then it's got like now cards. It's got a card that's like never. It's got a message. Sometimes it's hard to read the calligraphy at the bottom. The libido, the cave. This is interesting because this is the Tower, and then I'll show you another card. And then there's the Prison, and then there's the Destruction. So you know, the Tower card and the Destruction card are not the same. There's the Beast, which I really like. The Stranger, Death. I'm not going to show all the cards. I'm just showing the ones that I think are kind of interesting, curious. There's a Mother card, a Father card. There's a Voyage card. Skills. A Liberation card. So it's an interesting deck. I haven't used it in some time, but when I got it, it smelled so strongly of cigarette smoke, which usually is not that big of a deal for me, but wow, yeah, it was a big deal for me. Okay, the next curious decks are from this collection of decks. So I'm going to be showing the Sci Oracle of the Sun and the Sci Oracle of the Waters in combination with the Moon Oracle of the Sci and the Sci Oracle of the Fleeting Hare. These are both by, all four of these decks are by John Matthews, and the images are by Will Kinghan. And I've combined them in just a giant pack. But I'll show some of these. Are just really strange and cool. If you don't like holes, like if holes creep you out, then look away, because this whole deck is about little holes, so don't look. Really cool, really weird, very curious, because it's a contacted deck, and John Matthews wrote it after years of corresponding with the Sci. And so these are the backs of this portion of the deck. And then we'll move on to the Fleeting Hare. And what I like about this, I've always been really attracted to hares, but these hares, they have character. Like, there's more going on than just running. And he said, Kinghan said in the book, or maybe it was John Matthews, said in the book that once they put these like tribal markings on the hares, all of a sudden it made a lot more sense to what the hares are pointing at and what they're asking you as the questioner to like look at. And so if you have an affinity for hares, this deck is really powerful. It does not pull any punches. So don't go to this deck if you are feeling particularly vulnerable. I wouldn't say it's a harsh deck because there are harsh decks. This isn't a harsh deck, but it's kind of like, it just seems otherworldly. And if you've ever contacted the She, you will know that the way their rules and our rules are different. So that's all I can say about that. Okay, so that's the Fleeting Hare, and then this is the water deck. So this is the back of this. Really cool. Yeah, just really curious, interesting images that I really enjoy, and I find them very deep. And the book does help, but again, it's a kind of a channeled or contacted, so not like it doesn't. Nothing in the book is really super clear. You know, you have to think about it. Different art style. Looks like it's done with oil pastels or just pastels, so it's a different style. And this is all kind of like watery, and then the last is the kind of more like sun or fire, and this is what the backs of these look like. Again, cool and deep, and very much like Fae energy, which does take some getting used to, because it's not, none of the ideas in any of these 4 decks are going to be super clear, but very interesting. Okay, so that is well, it's like 4 decks is kind of a cheat because it's 4 decks, but that is my second grouping of curious decks. And I don't want this to fall. Okay, so the next deck I wanted to talk about, I don't hear people talk about this deck that much in our community. I only go to this deck for super big issues, and that's the Symbolon deck by AGM. This deck is really, really bizarre and strange and beautiful. It's got a lot of astrology correspondences. So we've got the Sun and Mercury and Leo, and I don't know what that is up there. Leo and the Sun, Gemini and something, Mercury and Saturn. I have done readings with this deck. Like I said, I only do it. This deck will kick you in the teeth. So I only do it when I'm really feeling like I want to know the truth no matter what. And I did a reading about 9 months ago, and it was so accurate. It was heartbreaking. It's funny that card would come up when I said that. It was heartbreaking, but it was accurate. It was true, and it's what I needed to hear. So this deck is very curious and very weird, and I really, the art looks like a fairy tale or children's book, and so it kind of lulls you into a sense of, oh, this is sweet, and it is not sweet at all. It will really call you out. But, you know, sometimes that's the only way, right? That's the only way. So really like this weird deck. Like, what's going on with that? A sad little jester. I'm gonna throw a tantrum. Oh, this one. This one's great. Look at that. Ah. This one. This is the guy who's not supposed to pull the sword out. They're like, see ya, bye. What's going on with this? Go get him, Medusa. So anyway, it's a cool deck. It's weird, and I would only suggest you use it when you really, really want the truth, and no matter what. That's the Symbolon deck, and it is definitely very curious. I would say curious and powerful, but very weird, very curious. I guess I'm using weird and curious together, because why not? The next deck I'm going to talk about is the Mystical Healing Reading Cards by Ina Segal. This deck is like surreal Renaissance art, and it's got some really strange images. Sorry for the glare. Sometimes, so I've found this deck to be really accurate, and it's called me out a couple times, but in a loving way. It's not like the Symbolon. It doesn't just kick you in the teeth. It called me out, but it also was like, this is for your own good. I mean, I guess the Symbolon does that too, but gosh, it's harsh. This deck is just, it's curious because of I guess you can't really see that. So right here, the figure is like been sawed in half. And there's a saw right there. Yeah, it's really interesting. I guess mostly for this, it's the images. And I talked to Lena, a Fire of Transformation. We were talking about how sometimes the keywords on this deck and the images don't sync. But for me, they don't always sync, but then the images, the keywords were like actually what was calling me out. So I'm going to keep them for now. This one's interesting, like take positive action. Really? She's in a bath. But anyway, this is a curious deck, and I like it. So that is the Mystical Reading Cards. Mystical Healing Reading Cards. Sometimes the titles of these decks are a little curious as well. Okay, so the last deck I'm going to feature, well, actually there's two left, is the Japaritzi. Someone else pronounced it differently, but I don't know how to pronounce it, so I really love this deck. I find it beautiful, but it's also very curious. It's got clowns in it, which are usually a big fat no for me. It's got things burning and a lot of masks, strange creatures in trees. I absolutely love this Three of Wands, but the figures are very bizarre. So it's oil painting, collage and just a lot of strange, curious amalgamations of scenes and feelings. I find it an extremely emotive deck, and I've had it for quite some time now, so it's a pretty deep reader for me. But it's strange and beautiful. Like, this is the Moon card. Very curious. If not just outright bizarre. But then, you know, some of the cards just so beautiful. The majors are pretty weird. So that's the Magician. And this is the High Priestess. The World. Like, this World totally makes sense to me. The King of Wands. This Hermit, you know, when you look at the pieces of the card or the art separately, you're kind of like, what is going on? But when I lay it in a reading, it just, boom, makes sense. So, and this card, the Hierophant. So at first you would be like, what? That is so strange. Bats and stairs and rocks and purple clouds, and a ladder, but totally makes sense to me. This is one of my favorite lovers cards ever. It's called Love. Yeah. You know, Judgment. The Sun. I like how the sun is kind of dark. This is another good example. Like, it's strange that that's for Temperance with the swings and the, but I don't know, it makes sense. The Devil. Great Tower card. Great Empress. Yeah, so it's a very curious deck. There's a lot going on. I always see something new when I look at it. You know, this is the Emperor card, and I still like it. As bizarre as it is. And that is the Fool. So that is the Japaritzi, and that is one of my very curious decks. And then I felt like I couldn't do this video without featuring this Brian Froud the Faerie Oracle. I've had this for over 20 years. It's a very special deck. Ooh. And deep. And it used to be a very harsh deck for me. I don't really know why. It must have been just the way I came to it. I'm not really sure. But now it's a very loving deck. And this Fae energy is, I think because of the way the guidebook is written, is a little more, I'm able to understand it a little bit better than the I guess the energy of the John Matthews 4 decks. I understand what he writes about, but the energy that comes through that deck is very otherworldly, or I guess I would say extra-worldly. And this deck seems, I don't know, to make more sense to me now. It could be that it's because I've had it so long. And it's really, whenever I read with this deck, it never disappoints. It always gives it to me straight, but in a very beautiful and loving way. People have probably seen this deck many times, but excuse me, I really love it. Okay, so that's going to do it for me. That is my response to Candy's top 10 curiosity decks, and I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.